When I was a kid, I knew that there were 86 steps from my front door to the mailbox. And I knew there were another 77 steps from the mailbox to my bus stop. And I knew there were 49 ceiling tiles in our kitchen in our house. You see, as a kid, I used to count all the time. I was using this counting as a coping strategy to shield me from the sadness and loneliness I was feeling as a bullied, awkward, gay kid growing up in the conservative Deep South. And that counting continued throughout my teenage years. And when it came time to go to college, I did what all young, aspiring counters want to do. They want to be a professional counter. So I studied accounting in college. The logical choice, became a CPA, and embarked on a pretty amazing career that spanned from Los Angeles to Mexico City to New York City, from corporate finance, public accounting, to mergers and acquisitions. And by the time the year 2000 came around, I was an executive in a Fortune 500 company in New York, making a boatload of money, and I'd become an expert at suppressing my emotions, appearing strong, and winning. September 11, 2001 happened in New York, and it obviously was a huge day for everybody, and it really shook my numbers world to the core. When I made that walk to work on September the 12th, 2001, I'd made that walk to work hundreds of times before down Broadway. Instead of doing my normal, making sure I step exactly 100 times between the blocks, or count the number of cracks in the sidewalk, I was actually looking up. And I was looking at people. I was looking them in the eye, sharing a moment with them, and maybe for the first time in my life, allowing them to look me in the eye too. It was a profound experience for me. It was maybe as close as I'd ever felt to people and to myself. That 25-block walk changed my life. And when I got to work, I walked into the lobby, and there were a couple of my coworkers there, and I was crying. I mean, I was tender, I was connected, I was human. I felt like I needed a hug. I felt like I needed something. My coworkers just kind of looked at me with a blank stare, confused. And that's when I realized companies actually don't pay much attention at all to how their employees are feeling. I knew I needed to make a change. Those 2 days just were transformational for me. I quit my job that day. And I spent the next several years of my life trying to explore what this other side of me was all about, this side of me that I had been ignoring and compartmentalizing for 30 some odd years. I went on countless silent meditation retreats. I read books about brain neurology and emotional integration. What I realized was that for the first 35 some odd years of my life, I had been actively and nearly completely distancing myself from my emotions. I was thoroughly unhappy. I had no real friends in my life, no one to connect to. And I'd been working in companies that actually supported this kind of lifestyle of being unemotional and winning at all costs. I had to make a change. I knew I needed to do something different with my life the rest of these years I have. So when I moved to Portland in 2006, I committed to living my life more fully. And I committed to creating a company that also is about more than just the numbers, a company that's about people too, a company that's about connections and culture. You know, when people talk about corporate culture, they're generally referring to a company's cognitive culture, or like the shared intellectual values of a company. Cognitive culture sets the tone for how employees think and behave at work. For example, how innovative a company is, or how team-oriented or customer-centric a company is. But there's another part of company culture that lives alongside its cognitive culture, and it's a company's emotional culture. Emotional culture governs what employees are feeling and how they communicate those emotions in the workplace. While the primary difference is thinking versus feeling, those two cultures are also communicated differently. Cognitive culture is communicated overtly, verbally, whereas emotional cultures communicated non-verbally through body language, facial expressions, posture, energy. What I found is that companies rarely manage their emotional culture as deliberately as they do their cognitive culture, and many companies don't pay any attention to emotional culture at all. And when business leaders ignore the emotional culture in their companies, they're ignoring something that is fundamentally human, and they'll never realize the full potential of their company. In 2016, Harvard Business Review and the Wharton School of Business surveyed 3,200 employees across 17 different industries. And what they found is that employees who worked in companies with strong and healthy emotional cultures had significantly higher rates of job satisfaction. They were more engaged in the workplace. They felt significantly more loyal to their company, and they had a higher level of personal accountability in the work that they do. Here's the deal. If your company focuses on a scarcity of resources, an us versus them mentality, and winning all the time, you're creating an emotional culture of fear. And that leads to employees who are fragmented, ultra-competitive, fearful, and mistrustful. If you integrate emotions in your company like empathy, compassion, and kindness, the result are employees who are trusting, they're confident, they're secure, they're connected. Not only to each other, but they're connected to themselves, and they're connected to your customers. So how can you, in this room, create a healthy emotional culture in your business? Well, if you're serious about it, put it in your mission statement. And don't be afraid to use words like empathy, compassion, kindness, even the L word. Yep, love. But don't just stop there. Practice it in your daily office life. Small gestures, acts of kindness and generosity in the workplace. Being present for your employees, seeing them. We as business leaders hold the most control over what the emotional culture of our company is like, and we must lead by example. If we consciously model those emotions ourselves, this will cue and inspire our managers to follow suit, and it will permeate into our entire company. I used to think that showing emotions made me look weak. Boy, was I wrong. Only when I bring my full self to work as a leader, my emotional side with my intellectual side, can I be the kind of leader that my company needs. And take it from a professional counter, business success is not all about the numbers.